does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. And today I'm very excited to check out Shifting Realms from Soaring Rhino. This is for 2 to 4 players. Ages 10 plus will take about an hour to play. And in Shifting Realms, you're going to set out 3 completely different realms. They're going to have different end-triggering game conditions. They're going to have different cards, different buildings, different stuff going on, and you're going to be moving units around these realms, trying to collect resources, get into fights, get story cards, and do a variety of other different things like that in this worker placement-esque game. It tries to add some different aspects, some variability into here, while still being a pretty family-friendly game. It's not too complex, but isn't good. Let's open it up, and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Shifting Realms. So first and foremost, we have a handy-dandy rule booklet. It is 8 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. If you can't tell, this one's got a lot of wear on it. That's because it's not a particularly great rule booklet. And I can't put my finger on what bugged me about the rule booklet, but we had a really hard time figuring out the game for some reason. And it's one of those games where you read the rules, and if you read the rule booklets dry, which is what I always do, I'll read them without having the game in front of me and see if I can figure out the game. I had no clue what was going on. In particular, I do want to highlight the fights section of the game, because fighting in the game is an interesting aspect to the game, and it's a very strategic aspect of the game, and they want to reassure you that it's super simple to fight, but then in actuality, it's like, here you go. Example, 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 example. And it's like, okay, those are all these examples here. And it's still, we kept like, I think this is how it works. I think this is how it works. Pictures are great. Pictures are great. This rule booklet does not have enough of pictures, especially when it comes to the fighting. Maybe that's just me, but we really had an issue understanding the fighting. And even after the third game, I was still like, I think this is how the fighting works. But anywho, what you're going to be doing in Shifting Realms is you are going to be putting together 3 separate realms. And there's 2 realms that we're not using right now. So there is going to be a little bit of variability. And each of the realms is going to have a different way that its realm will trigger endgame objective. And the game will generally end when 2 of the 3 objectives have met. So right now, I have the Anuna board out here, which will end when the last of these story cards is drawn. We have the Alfheim one, which when all 3 elven castles are built, will trigger the end of the game. And these are the elven castles right here, which will give you a whopping 13 points, but they're going to cost you a lot of resources to make. And then over here, we have the Libertalia, which is the pirate one, where a player has gone on 4 pirate raids and 2 buried treasure structures have been built. And I'll explain how those work a little bit later. But each game, you're going to have 3 boards out here. There's a grand total of 5. One of them is going to have this cool dragon that's moving around. The other one that's not pictured is actually going to be the troll one, where you're going to be fighting this big troll. But you're going to be moving your dudes around, you're going to be collecting resources, you're going to be building stuff, and let's just go ahead and get you into the game. Let's go over the components, let's get into the gameplay. So down here we got ourselves a handy-dandy little score track. I don't really need to show you too much because, I mean, you know what a score track is. It is kind of annoying. I wish they would have just put all the numbers on there instead of just every single 5, but hey, that's more of a nitpick than everything. Also, at the beginning of the game, you're going to start with one of your cool little soldier dudes, which are actually these really nice little plastic pieces on the board, and you're going to have a scout on each one of the 3 different town halls, which are these locations right here. On your the next thing you're going to get is you're going to get task cards. And everybody's going to get 1 task card from each location. These are not particularly great. These are the kind of things where if they happen, but you should not go out of your way to try and do it. And they'll say 3 victory points if you have 4 stone in your supply. Or 3 victory points if you have 3 scouts in Alfheim that are not on the town hall space. Or 3 victory points if you have 1 wood and 3 gold in the supply. These are the kind of things where if they fall into your lap, that's great, but you should kind of focus on building other things because it's really a more effective use of your time. And the 2 times that I saw somebody try and focus on these in the middle of the game or at the beginning of the game and just kind of set them off to the side so they don't have the points at the end, they lost. They both lost. They lost pretty convincingly because those resources are better used beginning and mid-game to help build buildings and start trying to get your engine churning. But you're going to have a whole bunch of these extra dudes right here, and you're also going to have a whole bunch of these little wooden pieces right here, which are going to be your scouts, aka your workers, if you're familiar with worker placement games. So what you really need to know is soldiers are going to protect your scouts, and soldiers are also going to, bam, kind of beat up other people's scouts. So what you're going to do on your turn? Well, luckily, you're going to have this turn order card right here, and you'll bid on these at the beginning of the game. So if you're playing a 3-player game, you only have 3 of them, but whoever goes last pretty much is going to get a little bit of a bonus, and whoever goes first, they're going to go first. But more importantly, on the back it has a handy-dandy little player reference, which could be better, but it's not the end of the world. So on your turn, you're going to perform 3 actions, and then you're going to collect resources, and that's all you're going to do. And it's actually a pretty simple game once you get going. So here's the actions you can do. First thing is you can spend a gold, which are these yellow cubes right here, and you can purchase 2 units. You can purchase either soldiers or you can purchase scouts, and you'll be able to put those on the board on certain locations. That would count you as 1 action. Next thing you can do is you can move, and you get to move up to 3 spaces, and you can move as many pieces from 1 location to 3 spaces. So essentially I could move all my red guys that I have over here 3 spaces. So what I might do there is I might go, 1, 2, 1, 2, and I might just put them on the wood right here. This guy actually shouldn't be here. Boop, get out of here. Now, why do I want to put him there? Because when I get to the collect resources phase, that's going to allow me to collect 1 wood. And there's different resources on the board. So this one's wood, this one's stone, this one is magic, which you can trade in magic. I think it's 4 to 1. Yeah, 4 to 1 will get you any resource you want. And also building some of the buildings is going to require magic as well. So that one's going to require 2 magic to build. There is also gold down here as well. And the other interesting thing is these spaces are going to start getting covered, and I'll show you that a little bit later. So the next action you can do is you can build structures. So if you have the required cost of one of the buildings up here, and you're either on a space that is able to be built on or next to a space, then you can build something. So let's take a look at this Elven Wharf right here. So the Elven Wharf has to be built on water, and there's only 3 water spaces right here, and it has to be built in this particular kingdom right here. So I could not build this right now, but let's pretend that I was here instead. So if I was right there, I could build this Elven Wharf right here if I was able to turn in 3 wood and 1 gold. That is going to immediately earn me 1 victory point. I have to build it on water, and then during the produce phase, I'm always going to get 1 wood and 1 stone. So this is going to be like a persistent 1 wood and 1 stone that I'm always going to have. And you're supposed to put one of your scouts on there to mark that you have built that. I don't have a scout right in front of me because I'm a noob, so we'll just put this one, bam, right there. So now this is my building. No one can mess with it. I'm always going to be producing 1 wood and 1 stone, and plus I gain a victory point out of it. So as you can see, building the buildings is really going to be great, and each of the buildings has its own unique quirk. So let's go over some of the other buildings. So this one right here is you may trade in 2 gold for 1 magic. So this one's going to allow you, it's going to get you 1 gold, and it's also going to allow you to trade in gold for magic. Super useful. The Elven Castle does not give you a special ability, but 13 victory points is a huge chunk of victory points. Moving over to this one right here, we have the Gold Shrine. You may only build 1 gold shrine. When you draw a story card, you may draw an additional card from the same deck. Choose one to keep and place the other on the bottom of the deck. That's really useful because the story cards are very useful, and I'll talk about those in a second. We have the Blessed Quarry, which is just going to get you 3 stones when you make it. You have the Divine Temple. You may pay 1 stone to draw a story card from any deck. You still may only draw up to 2 story cards per turn. And that's really useful because there's very restrictive rules about how you can get story cards most of the time, which I'll talk about actually in about a second. So that's how you're going to be able to build the buildings, and each of the buildings is different, and each of the buildings in each different location is different as well. So right now we are not using 6 of the buildings because we're not playing with the dragons and we're not playing with the big bad goblins that you have to fight as well. Another action you can do is you can draw up to 2 story cards. And how drawing story cards is kind of interesting. You have to not be in a location in order to draw the story cards. So right now, I could not draw any story cards because I am in this location, I'm in this location, I'm in this location. But let's pretend that we had moved this guy over here and this guy right here, which means I could now start drawing the Anuna story cards as an action. And these story cards look like this. They'll say, choose a resource space in Anuna or replace an opponent's scout with one of your scouts. You may then add a soldier to that space. Very powerful. Gain 1 resource of your choice. You may draw a card from any story deck in play. You still may only draw 2 story cards per turn. Choose an opponent. That player chooses 2 resources and gives them to you. And they are different from deck to deck to deck. Like, I believe this one has some victory points in it, which is really nice. Like, 1 card is just going to get you 3 victory points, which is super useful. Gain 1 magic and gain 1 extra action these turns. So they did try to theme the story cards to the different locations, which I like as well. But getting story cards is a little bit of a bugaboo unless you get some of the buildings, which will help you out with it as well. So draw a story card, recruit units. They tell you how to do that, moving and build structures. And that's pretty much it. You're going to do 3 actions on your turn, and then you're going to collect your resources. So you'll take a look at the board and see where your scouts are and where your workers are and which buildings you have. You collect the resources, and your turn's over. That's pretty much it. You're going to rinse, wash, and repeat, continuing to do that until all the buildings have been built or until 2 of the 3 game-ending objectives have been met. Now, the other aspect of the game is fighting. And how fighting works is really kind of weird and wonky and really should have been cleared up. But essentially, if you want to, and you don't have to fight, you could just peacefully both collect wood over here. But what you can do is, if you decide to fight, a soldier kills a soldier. And then you go from there. And so let's say this green soldier just fights to fight the red soldier. Then I'm pretty sure what would happen is they both just die. And that's it. End of the fight. Now, if you had 2 red soldiers and a green soldier, then 1 red soldier and 1 green soldier would die, and then this green scout would die, and then any additional green scouts that happen to be here go back to the town hall. And as I mentioned, they have a ton of examples in here. But unfortunately, whenever we would get into a fight, it seemed like none of these examples were really helpful. And yeah, like let's look. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 8 examples here, and it's like, how are none of these useful? And you try and read through them, and I'd be like, I think that's how we do it. And I'd be like, all right, take the rule booklet while I take my turn and make sure that I did that right. And they should have made that clear. But you're going to go around, you're going to collect resources, you're going to do that until the game's over, at which point you will tally up your victory points, which you'll be able to count most of the time by looking at the stuff at the board and the cards in front of you. And whoever has the most points will be the winner of Shifting Realms. And that, in a nutshell, is how the game is played. But I do want to mention a little bit more about the 2 other realms that are not pictured right out here. So there is the Dragon Realm and the Elf Realm. The Dwarf Realm, whatever it is. And pretty much how the Dwarf Realm is, you're going to be fighting these dwarfs, or elves, and they're going to give you resources and give you points when you fight them. Also, how the pirate one works is you're going to put out these pirate ships, and then you have to put a soldier on there, and you have to flip the soldier down, and you actually lose that soldier for the rest of the game. But you're going to be able to get victory points, and you're going to be able to get gold, and you're also going to be able to get cards when you do that. So it is a very powerful strategy if you can get it up and running. And the dragon one is actually going to have this big dragon, this big plastic dragon moving around and destroying people's units as it goes. So that one's a little bit more confrontational. But that, in a nutshell, is what you're going to get in Shifting Realms. Alright then, Shifting Realms from Soaring Rhino. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, game's not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. 2 to 4 players, strict player count. Also, this game is a gateway-esque game. Maybe like a gateway plus game, so if you're hoping for something a little bit more meaty, this one's probably not going to be for you, which is a shame. I feel like if they would have fully fledged this out into a 90 minutes to 2 hour game, I think it would be a much easier recommendation from me. But I understand they wanted to make this very family friendly. It's ages 10 plus. It takes about an hour, which is a sweet spot for family games. But at the same time, I feel like they did sacrifice potentially turning this from a good game to a great game by doing that. Another con that I have in this game is that while it does have a good deal of variability, I wanted maybe just an extra realm or 2. It's nice that you're only going to use 3 out of the 5 realms, and the realms do feel different, as I'll mention in the pros, but I just wanted more, which is a testament to the fact that I like the game, but I feel like adding a 6th or 7th realm could have bumped up the replayability of the game a little bit more. One of the biggest cons I have of this game is the rule booklet. In particular, the combat. And we probably had 6 different people look at the rule booklet over the course of the 3 games, and every single person was like, yeah, this is not nearly as streamlined as it should be. And I agree. It even says in there, this is easy. The combat's easy. We're reassuring you that it's easy. Here's 7 or 8 examples to look at. And none of the examples seem to help. They'd be like, all right, here's what's happening right now. And you'd be like, I think we're doing it right. why don't you read the rules, read these 7 examples while I finish my turn to make sure I'm doing it right. And be like, I don't know. I read, I couldn't figure it out, but now it's time for my turn, so why don't you read it while I take my turn, and we'll see if that's right. And then maybe they'll get into combat during their turn and be like, oh, wait, but we're still trying to figure out if my combat was done correctly. And it gets to the point where you're like, I'm pretty sure this is how it's supposed to work. Pretty sure. Like 80% sure. But that 20% of lingering doubt should not be there. Especially in the combat, which can be very pivotal to the game. Being able to bump people off those resource spots is important. Another con that I have in this game is the starting cards you get. You get starting cards which will say, hey, you need to collect 3 stones or have 3 people in the building or something like that. They need buffed, I feel, because I'll put it this way. 2 people really focused on getting all 3 of their objectives done first / mid-game. And at the cost, the sacrifice of building buildings early. And those buildings are much, much, much better for you than these cards are. So I feel like those cards should have been buffed up a little bit, or they should say, hey, these cards, these are kind of things that you can go for towards the end of the game, but we don't recommend going for them at the beginning and the middle of the game, or else you're just going to kind of screw yourself over, because while it's great that you collected 3 stones, somebody else has a quarry now, which is going to give them 2 stones every single turn, which obviously is better. Any other cons I have with the game? No, I don't have too many cons with this game, to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you I think it's a good game, but I don't think it's a great game. Moving on to the pros, Shifting Realms is good. I enjoyed it. Everybody I played it with thought it was a good game. It was, the general consensus was, it's good. I would play it again, but I will never, ever request it again, and I agree. And the other thing is, this is the kind of game where it's not great enough that you're going to play it on a routine basis, I think, for most people, which means you're going to have to go back to the rule booklet every single time, which means you're going to get frustrated with the rule booklet, in particular the combat, every single time you play the game, unless you're able to play it on a consistent basis, which is not so good. But we're talking about the pros here. The box insert, I do like the box insert. It's a pretty well-done box insert. It's got a nice little semi-custom box insert. I do like the variability in this game. That's probably my favorite aspect of the game. I like how the cards are different. I like how the 2 out of the 3 the game end triggers are different for each realm. I like how each realm does have its own different feel and flavor. Well, I'd say 3 of the 5 have their own different feel and flavor. 2 of them feel somewhat samey. But the dragon one definitely feels different. The elf one definitely feels different. The pirate one definitely feels different. I like how each of the buildings is different, and I like how they're limited as well. I really like how there's very few of each of the buildings. So if you can get 2 of those, say the ones producing stone or something like that, you're just going to become a stone baron, which is good as well. I like how there's magic and you can trade resources in and get sort of things. So they try not to handcuff you too much, which is good. And as a family weight, not gateway, but gateway plus sort of game, I do think this is a good game. As a game night game, I wish it would have been more fledged out. I wish there was just more to the game, and I feel like that would have made the game better. I feel like this kind of game where it's kind of like, it's more of a family weight game than it is a game night style game. And while I didn't get the chance to play this with the kids in my class, I feel like the kids in my class would have liked this a good deal. So if you're looking at this as a potential family weight game, I think it gets a little bit of extra credit. I do want to mention that. Another comment on this game that I forgot to mention is that the theme, I don't know. There's no theme. Like, there's shifting realms, and each of the realms is different. Blah, 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 blah. You're not going to get in a theme at all. It's there, and they put an effort, and there's a cool dragon, and there's elf tokens, and stuff like that, and there's pirate ships. But the theme is pretty much just pasted on. It is a pretty generic worker placement game when you get really down to the nuts and bolts and the mechanisms. It's got the interesting combat and whatnot. It's got the story cards. That's another comment of this game, is that the story cards, some of the story cards you get are going to be super useful to you, and then some are going to be like, this is not really that useful. This is kind of a waste of one of my actions. But hey, whatever. Game needs a little bit of randomness. But in the end, I think Shifting Realms is a good game. I like the game. I would play the game again. But would I grab this game over all these other spectacular games I have on my shelf? Like I'm just looking over here at worker placement games, and I'm like, okay, worker placement. I got Kingsburg. Which one would I rather play? I'm going to go with Kingsburg. I got Lords of Waterdeep. Which one would I rather play? I'm going to go with Lords of Waterdeep. I'm still looking over here. I got, what is it? Manhattan Project and the Manhattan Project 2. I'm going to play both of those before I play this one. Let's see. Not necessarily worker placement, but 2 to 4. Terraforming Mars. I'm going to go with Terraforming Mars over here. You know, there's just so many other games that I have over here that are that 2 to 4 player count that I'd be like, yeah, I think I'd rather play that one again. Even if I have to reread the rules on that one. I think I'm going to go with that over this. And that, unfortunately, is just... Here's the thing. If this was coming out in the 90s, I think this would have been a hit. I really do. Because there were so few games coming out. This one, unfortunately, is just coming out 2018, where there's so many games competing for table space, and this one doesn't do enough to set itself apart. It doesn't commit to being like a really hardcore, great worker placement game, and as a result, I think Shifting Realms is going to be lost in the tides of time, which is a bummer. So I think it's good, don't think it's great, hard to recommend. Maybe you find it cheap and you're in the market for a family weight game. Maybe check it out, but still, there's way other, you know what, yeah. Good, not great. Hard to recommend. There you go. That's Shifting Realm from Soaring Rhino. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. What is the last game that you played where you thought, wow, this is good. It's not great. I don't know if I'm going to keep it. For me personally, I'm going to go with Pick Your Poison, the Not Suitable for Work edition. So Pick Your Poison, I think, is a great family/party game, but they made a Not Suitable for Work edition, which I thought was okay. And by the standards of other Not Suitable for Work games, it's the kind of thing where I would never grab it, but if someone wanted to play it, I would play it. And so that's kind of how I feel about this game, but obviously not in a Not Suitable for Work party game sort of situation. Below in the comments below, what is the last game you played where like, this is good? It's not great, though. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.